Hello science fans, and welcome to SHE-ensya's Corner. Here, we kick back, relax, talk about science events, both great and mundane, in the life of your resident Filipina scientist. It's February 20, science fans. I am Shauna Camille Vinci Cruz Abeledo, your resident Filipina scientist, and welcome to the lucky episode 13 of SHE-ensya's Corner. So for this week in quarantine, we had some bloody reactions to the new COVID-19 vaccines. We also had a Mars landing, and today is also World Pangolin Day. Recently, we saw in the news that a 72-year-old Filipina living in New York developed a rare blood disorder after she received Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine. One day after she received her first shot of the vaccine last January 19, Legaspi was brought to a hospital in Queens because she had bruises all over her arms and legs and she had blisters in her mouth that continued to bleed. She was diagnosed with thrombocytopenia. Thrombocytopenia is a condition characterized by abnormally low levels of platelets, also known as thrombocytes, in the blood. A normal human platelet count ranges from 150,000 to 450,000 per microliter of blood. But allegedly, Legaspi had a platelet count of 0 when she was brought to the hospital. Now, the principal function of platelets is to prevent bleeding by creating temporary plugs and promoting blood clotting. If you have thrombocytopenia, it means you have very little platelets in your blood. Now, for most of those who have it, it's actually not that big of a deal unless they are injured. But if you have the severe form of the disease, you can actually bleed spontaneously from your eyes, your gums, or even your bladder. And any form of injury can become fatal. Science fact. So, how can a COVID-19 vaccination suddenly trigger this rare blood disease? There are many possible causes for having a low platelet count, ranging from aplastic anemia, where your body cannot produce enough blood, or even iron deficiency or vitamin B12 deficiency, and so much more. But another way that you can lose your platelets is when you have the condition known as idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. This is when your own immune system is on hyperactive mode and decides to destroy your own platelets.
What?
Though the cause for this is relatively unclear, it can actually be triggered by viruses and other pathogens, allergens, or even a new vaccine, because these substances can cause our immune system to overreact. What we do know now is that there are few singular reports of thrombocytopenia developing in patients who have been injected with the Moderna and the AstraZeneca vaccines. But this is no cause to panic, as there is yet no clear evidence that links the sudden onset of the disease with the vaccine. In the case of Ma'am Luz Legaspi, she was treated with platelet transfusions, steroids, and immunoglobulins. Dr. Niriksha Chandrani, a platelet expert in New York, also recommended an alternative treatment that eventually made the condition of our fellow Filipina to improve. Now flying out to outer space, NASA's rover Perseverance also did a tricky landing on Mars last February 18, 2021. Perseverance is a 6-wheeled SUV-sized vehicle that has the most sophisticated astrobiology lab ever created, and also an experimental drone on board. It blasted off into space last July 2020 on a 293 million-mile journey with the mission of exploring an ancient crater lake for signs of past life. But the past few weeks of February was actually full of nail-biting moments for 3 countries, perhaps even the world, as 3 missions approached Mars. One of these missions was the Hope craft, launched by the United Arab Emirates, and was the first to successfully enter the orbit of Mars last February 9, 2021, after launching last July 20, 2020. China's Tianwen-1, on the other hand, reached Mars orbit last February 10, 2021, after launching on July 23, 2020. Science fact: the success of the Perseverance depended on a nerve-wracking 7 minutes of terror of entry, descent, and landing, or EDL sequence that had to occur smoothly without the intervention of Earthbound engineers. You see, because Mars is so far away, it takes 11 minutes for signals to reach Earth, where the mission is managed. This means by the time the engineers receive a message that EDL has begun, Perseverance will have been on the ground, either intact or fully destroyed. The atmosphere of Mars is a tiny fraction of Earth's, too thin to offer much in the way of a brake for a spacecraft on a speeding descent, but thick enough to burn it up if something goes wrong, and many have tried and failed entering Mars smoothly. The landing sequence for Perseverance is essentially the same as the one used by the previous rover Curiosity to land in Mars in 2012. What makes it a little bit more difficult is the choice of the landing site. The landing site, Jezero crater on the western edge of Isidis Planitia, is a rougher patch. Unlike Curiosity, Perseverance will have to use the terrain relative navigation to find a good spot to land and steer itself before touchdown. The Jezero crater was chosen from among 60 candidate landing sites after an extensive 5-year study to weigh the merits of each location. The Jezero crater has one of the most beautifully preserved delta deposits on the surface of the red planet, and it also has unmistakable signs of being filled with liquid water billions of years ago. So, if we're ever going to find traces of life on Mars, it's one of the best places to look. And today, as I mentioned earlier, is also World Pangolin Day. Science fact: though many think of pangolins as reptiles, they are actually mammals. They are the only mammals wholly covered in scales, and they use those scales to protect themselves from predators in the wild. If under threat, a pangolin will immediately curl itself into a tight ball and use its sharp-scaled tails to defend itself. Pangolins eat ants, termites, and larvae, and are often known as the scaly ant-eater. Because they have no teeth, pangolins pick up their food using their long, sticky tongues, which can reach lengths greater than the animal's body. They are certainly one of the most trafficked mammals in Asia, and increasingly in Africa. Pangolins are also in high demand in countries like China and Vietnam. Their meat is considered a delicacy, and their scales are used in traditional and folk remedies. Despite the fact that all 8 species of pangolin are protected under national and international laws, there is still a growing illegal trade of pangolin all over the world. Based on reported seizures between 2011 and 2013, an estimated 116,000 to 234,000 pangolins were killed, but experts believe that seizures represent as little as 10% of the actual volume in pangolins in illegal wildlife trade. But is there any good news for the pangolin this World Pangolin Day? Yes, we actually do. In 2016, a treaty of over 180 governments announced an agreement that would end all legal trade of pangolins and further protect the species from extinction. And just recently, in June 2020, China increased protection of the native Chinese pangolin to the highest level, which closed the loophole that allowed some individuals to continue consuming pangolin within their country. Additionally, the Chinese government will no longer allow the use of pangolin scales in traditional medicine, a big win given that an estimated 195,000 pangolins were trafficked in 2019 for their scales alone. Pangolins are essential to maintain the Earth's biodiversity, and biodiversity is essential for our survival. Because after all, every action, every extinction has its own feedback. If you're curious about the feedback mechanisms of Earth, please watch the SHE-ensya video that will pop up over here at the end of this one. And that's it for SHE-ensya's Corner this week. For more updates about the goings-on at SHE-ensya and your resident Filipina scientist, please follow SHE-ensya on Facebook and at SHE-ensya on Instagram. Drop by our website also at www.sheensya.com. You can also follow my personal IG account at shona.abiledo. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something from our episode of SHE-ensya's Corner this week. If you did, I hope you can give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please don't hesitate to message me, your resident Filipina scientist, in the comments section below. Thank you very much, and see you around!